My grandfather had invested shrewdly in the first color television set in the neighborhood. He had invested just as shrewdly in 1932, 2 days after Franklin D. Roosevelt won the Democratic nomination for the presidency, in a decrepit bar that had been shuttered throughout Prohibition. Everyone knew that Roosevelt was going to win, he told me, and that it was just a matter of time until beer would be legal, and then everything else. I was terrified that someone would snap this place up in the 48 hours it took me to round up $100, no easy task, I can tell you, for an option to buy as soon as I could get a lawyer to draw up the papers. Prohibition, which had been in effect since January 17, 1920, was repealed on December 5, 1933. As Southsiders, nearly all of my grandfather's customers were Sox fans, although we occasionally watched the Cubs, especially if the still Brooklyn Dodgers were in town and we would get a chance to see Jackie Robinson. By the time I was in first or second grade, I was very much aware of the significance of Robinson. In the summer of 1953, Gramps took me to Wrigley Field because the Dodgers were in town. Jackie didn't do anything special that day, but every time he stepped up to the plate, he was greeted by a combined chorus of cheers and boos, with taunts of the N-word audible among the latter. Banks, who would become the first black player for the Cubs, was not on the field. He was called up from the minor leagues in September, and his first full major league season was 1954. I am told by Cubs fans of my generation that racial epithets vanished rapidly from Wrigley after Banks, who became one of the most popular players in the club's history, established himself as that rare baseball figure, a power-hitting shortstop. During the game I attended with my grandfather, I was very upset. The N-word, which I had heard on the school playground, was explicitly forbidden in both my parents' and my grandparents' homes. Gramps turned around and told one man in the row behind us to stop using such language in front of children, but the day was spoiled. I couldn't stop talking about it at the bar the following Saturday, and one of the men said to Gramps, "Jim, you shouldn't have exposed her to that." He replied, "She should grow up knowing what other people have endured." Then he added, I remember this precisely, "I'm ashamed of myself that I didn't say something a lot stronger." Ah, those long talk-filled Saturday afternoons, ending only when, if the game didn't go into extra innings, wives came to fetch their husbands home for dinner around 5 o'clock. There was nothing I wanted to do more than listen, on and on, to the arguments, about baseball and everything else, conducted in Chicago's distinct second and third generation Irish-American accents. I now realize that this regular time out of time, spent listening to and talking with adults while watching the game we all loved for as long as the game lasted, was as different from today's technology-obsessed childhood as my childhood was from the one described by Laura Ingalls Wilder in her Little House on the Prairie series, set in the 1870s and 1880s. Looking back, I see that when I walked into my grandfather's bar, I was not only getting ready to watch the White Sox play the hated Yankees, but was entering the previous 7 decades of American history, as taught by the men who, like Gramps, had been born in the late 1880s and 1890s. I told a young friend, a fantasy baseball enthusiast who rarely attends games or watches them on television, that I was planning to write a short book about the challenges facing baseball, as a game and a business, in an era of fragmented attention spans and unprecedented competition for fans' attention among all sports. His response was, "Oh, you're going to write another one of those books about how wonderful things would be if baseball remained exactly the same as it was 20 or 30 years ago. Sunny afternoon games, the green of the field, fathers playing catch with sons." That is not my intention, because I do not think that everything about the game was better several decades ago, or even in the halcyon days preserved in selective memories of my childhood. Actually, sunny afternoon games had become as rare by the late 1980s as players who spent their entire careers on one team. My concerns about the future of baseball